Chapter 1121. Jia Yubian's expression did not change. He proudly picked up the phone and said with a smirk, "Yo, Xiao Chen. You must have heard the conversation just now, right? If you still regard Jia Musen as your friend, come back to the Jia family and let's sit down and have a good talk. Turtle Whip, I can give you a chance. Now immediately release Jia Musen and the Jiarinzhong, and then take your disabled son and roll out of the Jia family. Otherwise, when I get back, don't even think about having a good ending." Xiao Chen clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth as he spat out each word. Originally, he did not want to negotiate with Jia Yubian. After all, it was not easy for him to reach Qitian Gate and he could cure Tang Tang immediately. It would be best if they could solve it peacefully. However, it seemed that Xiao Chen's attempt did not have any effect. Ha 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 ha. When Jia Yubian heard Xiao Chen's warning, he was not angry but laughed. He provoked arrogantly, "It seems that you are as stupid as that idiot Jia Musen. Now his life is in my hands. What qualifications do you have to negotiate with me? Are you out of your mind? Turtle Whip, you will regret your choice now." Xiao Chen clenched his teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. His rage surged to the top of his head, and he wished that he could immediately dismember Jia Yubian and execute him. "Xiao Chen, since you said you have a choice, I might as well give you two choices now." Jia Yubian felt the anger of Xiao Chen on the other end of the phone. It was as comfortable as drinking a can of cold soda on a hot summer day. He said slowly, "The first is that you can never come back to the Jia family. The second is that you come and kowtow to me a few times, and then break your own tendons and vessels. But according to my understanding of you, I think you will choose the second one, and be a righteous idiot." Ha ha ha. "Oh, I choose the third one, which is to go back and torture you until you beg for death. Finally, I give you a suggestion. Hurry up and prepare 2 Nanma coffins, one for you and the other for your stupid son." After Xiao Chen said coldly, he directly hung up the phone and began to think about the next plan. TSK. What the hell? You only know how to act cool until now. Jia Yubian didn't seem to care at all. He threw Jia Musen's phone to the ground and stomped on it a few times. Only when the phone was trampled on and turned into scrap did he swagger out of the secret room. In the forest outside the open heaven gate, little Miss Xing and the others stood uneasily in place, watching Xiao Chen. Just now, the conversation between Xiao Chen and Jia Yubian was heard by Miss Xing and Tian Wangchuan without missing a single word. The two girls saw that after Xiao Chen put down his phone, he kept frowning as if he was thinking about something. They looked at each other and didn't dare to speak. They could only stand there quietly and wait. After waiting for a while, Xiao Chen seemed to have made a decision. He raised his head and looked at Xing Gongzi. He said, "Xing Gongzi, you must have heard the phone call just now. I'm going back to the Jia clan immediately. However, you don't have to go back with me. I have other things for you to do." "What is it?" Xing Gongzi asked subconsciously. "Help me steal some information from the open heaven gate. It's about the experimental drug Tang Tang. Since I can't directly go to Elder Sun to get the antidote, I can only start from other aspects. I want to see if there's any relevant information that I can take out and study." Xiao Chen said lightly. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. "Okay, no problem. Hurry up and go save Jia Musen and the others. Leave the matter of Tang Tang to me." Xing Gongzi didn't even think about it and directly nodded in agreement. However, she immediately regretted it. She was a little annoyed. Why did she listen to Xiao Chen so much? What was the situation just now? Why did I suddenly agree to it? Well, then I'll leave it to you. After you've successfully obtained the information, we'll contact each other again. Xiao Chen wanted to pat Xing Gongzi's shoulder, but his hands suddenly stopped in midair. He turned around and touched her little head. He said softly, "But the most important thing is to pay attention to your safety. If it's really difficult to get, don't take too big of a risk. Just give up. If worst comes to worst, I'll come back again." "Oh. I know." Xing Gongzi's little face inexplicably blushed. She bit her lower lip and wanted to say something. However, she couldn't say anything in the end. She could only nod and watch as Xiaochen left. Xiaochen was wholeheartedly thinking about Jia Muzin's safety. He didn't notice the change in Xing Gongzi's expression. He quickly took out his flying sword and brought Tang Tang and Tian Suruan onto it. He also stepped on it and urged his mental power. Whoosh! He broke through the air and disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. Although there was a lot of movement, the guards nearby were all changing shifts. No one noticed the movement of the flying sword. Xing Gongzi took a deep breath and calmed her emotions. Then, she put on a cold face and slowly walked towards the open heaven gate. The calm Xing Gongzi's heart was violently churning. She couldn't understand her own actions no matter how she thought about it. How could I so easily agree to Xiao Chen's request? And I even promised him to steal the sect's secret information. Isn't this too dangerous? Sigh. If I had known earlier, would have thought it through first. Now that he had already run away, there was no turning back. I had to do it even if I didn't want to. Damn Xiao Chen, stinky Xiao Chen. If you have something to say, then say it nicely. Why did you have to touch my head for no reason? I'm not a kitten or a puppy. I'm also not your pet. How can you touch me whenever you want? This is really infuriating. While her mind was letting her imagination run wild, Xing Gongzi unknowingly walked into the open heaven gate. Although the guards were changing shifts, some people saw her. However, everyone recognized this lone sect disciple. Therefore, no one went up to question her. Looking at the scattered buildings in the distance, Xing Gongzi lightly sighed. Since she had already returned, she could only think of a way to trick elder son over. Then, she could plan to steal the information. Xiaochen rode on the flying sword and flew at full speed for 2 days. When he passed by the heavenly jade mine, he discovered that it was still not under Jia Yubian's control. He quickly landed and found Jia Hongyong to get some spirit jades to replenish his strength. Then, he continued to rush towards the Jia clan. Jia Hongyong didn't know what had happened for the time being, and Xiaochen didn't tell him much either. He only warned him to keep a close eye on him, and not to let anyone he wasn't familiar with or not on Jia Muzin's side into the mine. Jia Hongyong didn't know what was going on. However, he still listened to Xiao Chen's words. He immediately agreed and specially increased the number of guards in the mine. Xiao Chen flew for a while. It wasn't until the second night that he finally arrived near the Jia clan. He first found a safe place and put Tian Suruan and Tang Tang down. After making proper arrangements for them, he gave the token that controlled Tang Tang to Tian Suruan for safekeeping and told her to take good care of Tang Tang. Chapter 1122. He was now going to the Jia family to rescue people. At present, the entire Jia family should be under Jia Yubian's control. The specific situation was still unknown. Xiaochen did not intend to bring the weak Tian Suruan and the confused Tang Tang in. Otherwise, it would be easy to make mistakes and he would not be able to protect them if he was careless. Although Tian Suruan was usually stubborn, he was very obedient at critical moments. He did not pester Xiaochen endlessly. Instead, he told him to be careful and come back early. Then, he obediently stayed where he was. After making all the necessary preparations, Xiaochen set up a monitoring formation and seized the time to sneak into the Jia family under the cover of night. However, out of caution, Xiaochen did not rush in rashly. Instead, he first used his divine sense to check the location of Jia Muzin and the others. After looking around, he discovered that other than Jia Muzin, who was tied up in the hall by Jia Yubian and personally guarded by people, the others were locked up in Jia Muzin's room in the courtyard. Furthermore, there were 2 men in black standing guard outside the door. After thinking for a while, Xiaochen decided to rescue the others first. After all, Jia Muzin had more people on his side. If he went to rescue them directly, it would easily alarm the enemy. It was safer to rescue the others first. Thinking of this, Xiaochen directly rode the flying sword and quietly came to the top of the courtyard. At present, he still did not know the strength of the two men in black. With the mentality of giving it a try, Xiaochen released his mind power to control all of them. If he succeeded, there would be no need to use force. Unfortunately, the reality was often not so smooth. When Xiaochen's mind power invaded the bodies of the men in black, he was shocked to find that he could not control their behavior at all. What was going on? Ever since Xiaochen learned to use mind power, he had never encountered a situation where he could not control it. Just as he was puzzled, the two black-robed men seemed to have noticed something amiss. Whoosh! Whoosh! Hearing the sound of something breaking through the air, the two men in black turned around and looked up at the same time. They slapped heavily at Xiaochen, who was standing in the air. Fortunately, Xiaochen was still vigilant and reacted in time. He controlled the flying sword to dodge the two strong chis. At this time, there was no meaning in staying in the air. Xiaochen simply landed in front of the black-robed man. It seems like you're quite capable. You're only at level 5 honorable realm, but you were able to discover my location so quickly. Xiaochen said calmly. However, in his heart, he felt that these two men in black were not simple. First of all, based on the fact that he couldn't control them, this wasn't something an ordinary venerable could do. According to the Elder Heaven Ancestor, his mental strength should be able to suppress a venerable of the same level. Secondly, they were able to sense the abnormality so quickly, and directly determine that Xiaochen was in the air from the source of the spiritual power release, and then instantly counterattack. This was even more unbelievable. This was the first time Xiaochen had encountered such a situation. When the two men in black saw Xiaochen, they did not respond to his probing. Instead, they charged at him from both sides without a word. Then, they each slapped their palms towards Xiaochen's chest and head. The two fierce palms were obviously using their full strength. It seemed like they were planning to kill Xiaochen in one blow. Xiaochen originally wanted to find out some information, but he didn't expect the two men to attack him so quickly. However, his reaction was also very fast. Although his opponents were only at level 5 honorable realm, he didn't dare to be careless. Both his palms struck out with all his strength towards the two men in black. Bang! The three palms collided with each other, producing a muffled sound. It was clearly two palms, but it sounded like there was only one sound. However, to Xiaochen's surprise, the two men in black acted as if nothing had happened. They were only pushed back a few steps, and their faces were expressionless. It seemed like they were not affected at all. On the other hand, Xiaochen was almost sent flying. He took a few steps back to alleviate the impact. He felt his palms go numb, and his internal organs were churning. His throat tasted sweet, and he almost vomited blood. Xiaochen cursed in his heart. Was this really a level 5 honorable realm? Even when he was fighting Jia Jinyan, he was only at this level. Moreover, he had used almost 100% of his strength just now. Why did it seem like it didn't have any effect on them? Xiaochen wanted to adjust his breathing for a while to calm the chaotic qi and blood in his body. However, just as he regained his footing, the men in black attacked him again, one from the front and one from the back. This time, they didn't attack at the same time. Instead, they split into two groups. The former attacked Xiaochen twice, while the latter observed closely from the side, waiting for an opportunity to attack. They were ready to block Xiaochen's escape route at any time. Motherf ****. Don't be fooled by the fact that the two of you don't know how to talk. You're pretty good at cooperating. Xiaochen cursed. First, he rolled to the side, dodging the attack of the first black-clothed man. However, before he could land and stand up straight, the second black-clothed man's attack followed him like a shadow. Bang! At that moment, Xiaochen's center of gravity was unstable. He couldn't defend himself in time. Even though he had already circulated his primordial qi to protect himself, he still took the full brunt of the attack. He was sent flying a few meters away and landed heavily on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Without waiting for Xiaochen to stand up, the two men in black turned around again, assumed a fighting stance, and charged straight at him. Xiao Chen was at his wit's end. Even though the men in black only displayed the strength of a level 5 honorable, their martial arts techniques could reach the power of a level 8 or even level 9 honorable. They were almost at the level of a perfected honorable. Previously, when he was fighting with Jia Jinyan, a perfected honorable, Xiao Chen had only gained a slight advantage by relying on the Elder Heaven Ancestor's possession. However, under the pincer attack of the two men in black, even if the Elder Heaven Ancestor came out to help him, he might not have a chance of winning. Master, don't worry. I'll help you kill them. Just as Xiao Chen was at his wit's end, a voice rang out in his mind. Then, a ball of bluish-purple flames came out of his body and stopped in front of Xiao Chen for a while. It was the flame of the underworld that he hadn't seen for a long time. The flame of the underworld was different from before. The color of the flames was extremely thick, and the huge ball of flames burned brightly in the air. Its aura was quite terrifying. As Xiao Chen's strength increased, the flame of the underworld also had the strength of an honorable after it awakened. After pausing for a moment, it immediately split into two and pounced at the two men in black. But what caused Xiao Chen to be taken aback was that when the two black-clothed men saw the two balls of flames aggressively attacking towards them, not only did they not show the slightest bit of fear, they even increased their speed and continued to rush towards him. It was as if in their eyes, their only goal was to kill Xiao Chen. Everything else was just fleeting clouds. Who? The men in black did not dodge. The two balls of flame of the underworld smashed directly onto their bodies and immediately set them on fire. Chapter 1123. Xiao Chen was surprised to find that the flame of the underworld could penetrate their clothes and burst into countless sparks on their bodies, burning them up. The two black-clothed men instantly became flaming men, but the strange thing was, even though their skin and flesh were already making sizzling sounds, the two of them did not let out any screams, as if they did not feel any pain. They still brandished their palms in a straight line towards Xiao Chen. Just as the palm wind from the black-clothed men was about to touch Xiao Chen's body, the flames burning on their bodies suddenly surged. In the blink of an eye, they were burned to ashes along with their bones. Xiao Chen only felt a gust of wind blow past, and then he saw two pieces of black clothes fluttering to the ground. The entire scene was extremely strange. Damn, Nethery, isn't your new skill a little too overbearing? The people are burned, but the clothes are still there. It feels like a horror movie. I'll give you 5 yuan for this special effect. Xiao Chen looked down at the black clothes on the ground, and then looked at the flame of the underworld floating in the air. He could not help but give a thumbs up and praise. Hee, actually, it's nothing. The key is that Master's level has been greatly improved, so I can also benefit from it. The two flame of the underworld made a naughty laugh, then turned a circle in the air, gradually merged into a ball, and slowly got into Xiao Chen's body. Xiao Chen looked down and found that he did not get any sparks. It seemed that the flame of the underworld could be released to the target. Elder Heaven Ancestor, who are these two people? With the danger averted, Xiao Chen heaved a long sigh of relief. He asked, could they be mutes? It doesn't feel like it. Not only did my mind control not work on them, but they were also lit by Nethery. They didn't know pain and rushed to me like a kamikaze team. They really dared to die. Xiao Chen said as he squatted down and rummaged in the two black clothes, trying to find some clues. But he did not find anything that could prove the identity of the men in black, so he could only throw the clothes aside gloomily. Well, have you noticed that they have a lot in common with Tang Tang? I guess these two are also the victims of that experimental potion. Not only do they not feel pain, but their hidden strength is also much higher than they look. Elder Heaven Ancestor calmly analyzed as he recalled Tang Tang's appearance and compared her with the black-clothed man. If you put it that way, it does look like it. Xiao Chen nodded and sighed. Fortunately, Nethery came to help. Otherwise, would have been crippled. Master, you don't have to thank me. This is what I should do. The flame of the underworld replied with a smile. Xiao Chen patted the dust off his clothes. While walking toward his room, he said in his divine sense, Nethery, I guess there will be a few more guys like this later. At that time, I can only count on you. Don't be courteous with them. Once you meet them, just kill them. Master, if there are only one or two of these guys, I can help you deal with them. But if there are too many of them, it will be a little difficult. After all, it will consume a lot of my energy to use a big move. The flame of the underworld cautiously said. Nethery also felt very uneasy about not being able to help her master. However, killing those two people had already consumed a lot of her energy. If there were another 10 or 8 black-clothed men, she would definitely not be able to handle them. No way. Xiao Chen was stunned. He pondered for a while and said, there are several black-clothed men in the hall. I guess they are all puppets. If you can't do it, you can only let Elder Heaven Ancestor possess you. Otherwise, if you can't deal with those people, you may suffer a lot. Shaking his head, Xiao Chen did not intend to think so much for the time being. He directly pushed open the door of Jia Muzin's room and walked in. When the people in the room saw the door being opened, they were all bewildered. However, when they saw Xiao Chen walk in, their faces quickly became excited. They stood up and surrounded Xiao Chen. Xiao. Hero Xiao, you are so considerate of us. You even risked your life to save us. I don't know how to thank you. Jia Yudo stood in the front, excitedly rubbing his hands and said with a flattering face. Jia Tuyao stood not far from him, his face darkening. He didn't have a good impression of Xiao Chen. But now, he was saved by someone else. At this moment, his mood was very complicated, and he didn't know what to say. Oh, you don't need to thank me too much. Just stay away from me. Xiao Chen pushed Jia Yuto away with a disgusted face. He looked around, walked to Jia Renzhong, and asked with concern, Renzhong, are you okay? Are you hurt? Where is Master Jia? Jia Yuto had been snubbed by Xiao Chen. Seeing that Xiao Chen didn't want to see him, Jia Yuto awkwardly curved his mouth, stepped back to stand beside Jia Tiao, and silently cursed Xiao Chen. I'm okay. But Master Jia is seriously injured. Brother Xiao, it's good that you are here. Go and see him. He is resting on the bed in the inner room. Jia Renzhong sighed heavily, separated the crowd with Xiao Chen, and walked into the inner room. When they came to the bed in the inner room, Xiao Chen saw Jia Jinyan lying on the bed with a pale face and his eyes tightly closed. Jia Jinyan's breathing was very weak, as if he would die at any moment. Xiao Chen could not help but jump in fright. He quickly stretched out his hand to check Jia Jinyan's pulse. Only then did he realize that Jia Jinyan's injuries were actually not too serious. It was just that anxiety had attacked his heart, causing his meridians to stagnate and his heart to be blocked. That was why he had become like this. He must have been angered by Jia Yubian's sudden betrayal. Xiao Chen. Why are you here? Jia Jinyan, who had his eyes closed, suddenly felt a trace of warmth coming from his wrist. He slowly opened his eyes and saw that the person who was feeling his pulse by the bed was Xiao Chen. Jia Jinyan blurted out in surprise. Master, don't talk. Let me give you a massage. While pressing on Jia Jinyan's acupoints, Xiao Chen said blandly, your meridians are stagnant because of the fire that attacked your heart. I'll help you to smooth your qi and blood, relax your meridians, and activate your collaterals. After that, you only need to rest for a while, and your injury will be healed. Xiao Chen didn't want to expose his ability to cure diseases with Yuan Qi for the time being. Therefore, he simply transferred his Yuan Qi bit by bit into Jia Jinyan's body with the help of a massage. Alas. Don't worry about my old bones. I just want to ask you one thing. Jia Jinyan wanted to hold Xiao Chen, but suddenly, he felt a stream of qi flowing up from his lungs. He couldn't help but cough a few times and spit out a few mouthfuls of black blood. After that, he felt much more comfortable. Chapter 1124. Seeing Jia Jinyan's surprised expression, Xiao Chen explained simply, this technique of mine is a unique skill of my family. It can soothe the internal organs, relax the meridians, and promote blood circulation. The effect is very fast. Oh. Jia Jinyan nodded his head, not fully understanding. Then, he thought of his own matters. He quickly grabbed Xiao Chen's hand and said eagerly, "Hero Xiao, I know that your strength is definitely above mine. Now that the Jia family is in trouble, can I ask you to help me clean up the family and get rid of this unfilial son, Jia Yubian? Then, you can save Mu Sun safely. The Jia family can only rely on him in the future. You don't have to say this. I will naturally go and save him. After all, he is my best friend." Xiao Chen smiled and continued to massage Jia Jinyan as he spoke unhurriedly. "That's great. Then. Jia Jinyan was overjoyed and wanted to ask Xiao Chen to set off immediately. However, Xiao Chen didn't seem to be in a hurry, so Jia Jinyan didn't know what to say at the moment. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Everything has its priorities. Right now, the extravasated blood in your body is blocked, and it has already affected your heart meridian. I have to get all the extravasated blood out of your body first. Otherwise, with your current condition, I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on for long. You are Jia Muzan's grandfather. I can't just leave you to die, can I? If Jia Muzan knew that I didn't care about his grandfather's safety, he would definitely blame me." Jia Jinyan closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and nodded. Although he was still very worried about Jia Muzan's safety, Xiao Chen really didn't lie. He knew his own body the best. It was indeed at a critical juncture, and he had no choice but to save him. The only thing he could do now was to let Xiao Chen massage him first. After he got a little better, he would ask Xiao Chen to think of a way to deal with Jia Yubian and the helper he invited. At the same time, in the Jia family's hall, on the mahogany chair that originally belonged to Jia Jinyan, Jia Yubian was sitting leisurely with his legs crossed. In his heart, he was fantasizing about how he would manage the family's business in the future. He was also calculating how much spirit jade he would need to use to exchange for a peak-grade medicinal pill for Jia Huiyan to mend his dantian. Then, he would let Jia Huiyan inherit the position of family head. After that, he would retreat behind the scenes and control the other affairs of the family. At that time, with power in his hands, wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted? "Jia Yubian, I think that Xiao Chen is already here." Just as Jia Yubian was feeling complacent, the black-clothed leader who was with him before suddenly walked in from the door with a solemn expression and said in a deep voice, "Ah. Who's here?" Jia Yubian was pulled out of his fantasy. He was in a bad mood and asked subconsciously. The leader of the men in black glared at him and continued, "Just now, a disciple of the sect came to report to me that the two men who were guarding the other members of the Jia clan suddenly lost their signal. I suppose they have been killed by Xiao Chen. Let's go and meet him first." "What? Killed? Elder Chen, didn't you say before that they would have no problem dealing with Xiao Chen? How could they be killed?" Jia Yubian finally heard Xiao Chen's name clearly. He was so scared that he almost fell off the chair. After he stood up with great difficulty, Jia Yubian's face darkened and he reprimanded loudly, "Are these biohumans that you Awakening Heaven sect have researched reliable? I invested a lot of money in them. How could they be killed by Xiao Chen so easily?" Jia Yubian was very shocked at this time. He had been secretly cooperating with Awakening Heaven sect for many years behind Jia Jinyan's back. Many private, under-the-table transactions were jointly promoted by the two parties. There had never been any mistakes. This operation was the same. Previously, Elder Sun had vowed to him that he would do his best to ensure that Jia Yubian took the position of Jia clan's family head. Elder Sun had also specially asked Elder Chen to bring a team of biohumans to assist. Unexpectedly, two of them had died so easily. How could Jia Yubian not be anxious and angry? "What? Are you doubting the strength of our Awakening Heaven sect?" Elder Chen raised the corner of his mouth and glanced at Jia Yubian with disdain. "Don't forget, it was you who cried and begged us to help. Now, only two of our sect's toys have died. You have already begun to question the ability of Awakening Heaven sect? It seems that your trust in Awakening Heaven sect is only so-so. When I return this time, I will report to sect leader Situ and reevaluate your loyalty to Awakening Heaven sect. This. Elder Chen, I didn't mean that. Don't misunderstand. I just think that Xiao Chen is very cunning. Even Jia Jinyan, that old B** starred, can't do anything to him. That's why I'm a little worried. I'm afraid that you will also suffer in his hands. After all, we have already come this far. We can't take it lightly and fall in the hands of this guy. Jia Yubian couldn't help but shiver and quickly explained with a humble face. Humph. He's just a kid who still smells of his mother's milk. What's there to be afraid of? Elder Chen impatiently waved his hand and said, Enough. Don't say such useless things. Hurry up and bring Jia Muzin along. We will be heading over immediately. Glaring fiercely at Jia Yubian, Elder Chen couldn't be bothered to talk with him anymore. He directly walked out the door and waved to the other black-clothed men. He quickly ran towards Jia Muzin's courtyard. Seeing that Elder Chen didn't pursue the matter any further, Jia Yubian let out a sigh of relief. He walked over to the bound Jia Muzin and gave him a heavy kick. Jia Muzin had been in a clear-headed state the entire time. Therefore, he had heard every word of the conversation between Jia Yubian and Elder Chen. Even though he had been kicked, he still looked at Jia Yubian with a mocking expression. Jia Yubian glared at him and fiercely said, It's all your fault, you little brat. You only know how to do bad things. Of all the people you could have brought back, you just had to bring back trouble like Xiao Chen. Not only did I fail to make Huiyan the patriarch, but I also wasted so much effort fawning over this and that. In a moment, I will deal with you and Xiao Chen. It can also be considered as helping my son vent his resentment. Hee, keep dreaming. With Xiao Chen's strength, getting rid of the few of you is a piece of cake. Just you wait. It won't be long before you and Jia Huiyan will pay the price for everything you've done today. Jia Muzin didn't show the slightest bit of fear as he coldly retorted. From his point of view, since Xiao Chen could easily deal with 2 black-clothed men, the rest would definitely not be a problem. Jia Yubian was simply seeking his own death. Ha ha ha. You can continue to talk big. In any case, after today, you won't have the chance to talk anymore. Now, I will let you talk to your heart's content. Jia Yubian didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed and gave Jia Muzin another kick. Then, he picked him up and chased after Elder Chen and the others. Chapter 1125. Quickly arriving at Jia Muzin's courtyard, Elder Chen looked around vigilantly. He didn't find any trace of Xiao Chen, but he did see 2 black clothes on the ground. The style of the clothes was very familiar, and it should belong to the 2 biohumans that were killed. But what was strange was that the 2 corpses were gone. Apart from the 2 black clothes on the ground, the courtyard was empty, and there was nothing else in it. Elder Chen couldn't help but feel puzzled. He couldn't figure out what Xiao Chen was up to. Why did he deliberately take off their clothes after killing them? Could it be that this Xiao Chen had some strange hobbies? Feeling a slight chill for no reason, Elder Chen subconsciously tightened his clothes. Jia Yubian also arrived very quickly. Although he was very arrogant on the phone, he still felt a sense of fear when he thought about facing Xiao Chen. Therefore, he didn't dare to get too close. He only held Jia Muzin tightly in his hand, and was prepared to use him as a shield at any time. Xiao Chen. Stop hiding and quickly get out of the room. Elder Chen threatened loudly, otherwise, I will let Jia Yubian slowly kill Jia Muzin first, then send people in and kill all the Jia family members inside. Although his tone was very tough, Elder Chen actually didn't dare to rush into the room rashly. He was afraid that Xiao Chen had installed some kind of mechanism inside, and it would easily cause him to lose people meaninglessly. After waiting for a while, just when Elder Chen was starting to get a little impatient, Xiao Chen finally walked out unhurriedly with a sloppy appearance. Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Jia Muzin was unscathed and had only suffered some superficial injuries. He had been at a critical juncture of treating Jia Jinyan's injuries, so he had been delayed. Moving his eyes away from Jia Muzan, Shao Chen raised his head and saw 7 men in black standing behind Elder Chen. Their expressions and aura were exactly the same as the 2 men in black killed by Flame of the Underworld. Although his expression didn't change, Shao Chen's heart was numb at this time. Even if Flame of the Underworld could kill 2 more, he might not be able to deal with the remaining 5 men in black even if he relied on the Elder Heaven Ancestor's possession. What's more, there was a man in front who seemed to be the leader, who had been staring at him covetously. In addition, there was not a single person in the room behind Shao Chen who could help. Although Jia Jinyan's injuries were no longer a problem, his vitality was greatly damaged and his body was weak. Currently, his strength had not recovered yet, so even if he forced himself to come out, he would only be a hindrance. Not to mention Jia Yuto and Jia Tuyao, their cultivations were way too low, and they were as timid as mice. They only knew how to hide in the room, and they would probably wet their pants before the fight even started. Thousands of thoughts flashed across his mind, but in fact, it only lasted for a moment. Shao Chen yawned and said with a bored face, "Why are you looking for me? Don't you know there are wounded people in the room? You're already dozens of years old, yet you still don't know the rules. Why are you making a racket in the middle of the night? What's wrong with you?" While talking unhurriedly, Shao Chen's mind was spinning quickly, trying to figure out a way to deal with these men in black. Hee, Shao Chen, I thought you didn't dare to come out, or ran away directly. I didn't know that you're so brave. Elder Chen crossed his arms in front of his chest, looked at Shao Chen coldly and said scornfully. That's all? If that's all, I'm leaving. Shao Chen impatiently waved his hand, turned around and walked straight into the room. Stop! Elder Chen shouted. When Shao Chen turned around, he said gloomily, I didn't know that you're so young, but you do have some abilities. You actually killed 2 biohumans. But I'm sorry, your good luck ends here. I can give you another chance to leave your last words. Before you die, do you have anything else to say? Oh, I do. Do you dare to fight me one-on-one? When Shao Chen heard the word biohuman, an idea suddenly flashed in his mind, and he thought of a solution. But he just said it perfunctorily. Ha ha ha. Are you scared out of your wits? This is Elder Chen from the Open Heaven sect. With such a noble identity, how could he fight one-on-one with an ant-like individual cultivator like you? Seeing that Shao Chen didn't take the initiative to attack, Jia Yubian thought that he was scared. He was happy, and swaggered forward to provoke him. Oh, it's the elder from the Open Heaven sect. Shao Chen didn't feel surprised, but he still put on a look of sudden realization. He looked at Jia Yubian seriously and said, Turtle Whip, I was wondering why you dared to rebel so impulsively. Usually, when you see me, you're like a cowardly quail. Why did you suddenly become so fierce? So it's because you have the Open Heaven sect supporting you. Jia Yubian snorted coldly, stared at Shao Chen, and threatened, I advise you to quickly surrender. Maybe if Elder Chen is in a good mood, he will give you a quick. As he spoke, Jia Yubian's expression suddenly became a little confused, and his voice also became hesitant. Opposite him, Shao Chen's eyes were shining with a strange light. It turned out that at this time, Shao Chen had directly released his mental power to Jia Yubian, intending to control him first and carry out his plan. Jia Yubian, why are you talking nonsense with him? F***ck. Elder Chen glared at Jia Yubian fiercely. Just as he was about to order the biohumans behind him to kill Shao Chen, he suddenly saw a figure flash in the corner of his eyes, and then a strong wind attacked him. Due to his keen awareness of the crisis, Elder Chen twisted his body at the critical moment and barely avoided the palm wind. Elder Chen originally wanted to scold Shao Chen for being despicable and taking the opportunity to sneak attack. However, when he turned his eyes, he saw that Shao Chen was standing in the same place without moving, looking at him with a smile. It's not Shao Chen's sneak attack. Then who is it? Elder Chen only felt a chill rising from his back. He immediately turned his head and suddenly saw Jia Yubian's ferocious face, waving his palm at him again. Elder Chen was so shocked that he even forgot to dodge. He pointed at Jia Yubian and shouted, "Are you crazy? Stop it now." Bang! Before waiting for Elder Chen to finish speaking, Jia Yubian's palm was already on his chest. Luckily, Elder Chen used his demonic energy to protect his body in time, so he was able to resolve some of the damage. However, he was still hit by that force and took a few steps back. The blood in his lungs was churning, and he could not help but cough a few times. Jia Yubian's eyes were dull, and he did not give Elder Chen any chance to breathe, and he slapped him again. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. This time, Jia Yubian's palm wind was fierce and fierce. If it touched Elder Chen, he would definitely die or be crippled. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen was destined to be disappointed this time. Chapter 1126. Before Jia Yubian's palm could touch Elder Chen's chest, the figures of those black-clothed men flashed. One of them stood in front of Elder Chen and helped him take the hit. The rest of the black-clothed men simultaneously sent a palm strike towards Jia Yubian. Boom! After a loud sound, several large holes appeared on Jia Yubian's body. He was sent flying. He drew a parabola in the air and landed heavily on the ground not far away. Other than the fact that his body was covered in blood, Jia Yubian's eyeballs were about to pop out. He stared at the sky motionlessly. It was obvious that he was dead. Damn it. Fortunately, I set up a protective mechanism for these cyborgs. Otherwise, would have died in Jia Yubian's hands today. Elder Chen stared at Jia Yubian's corpse and muttered to himself. His expression was extremely ugly. Elder Chen was puzzled by Jia Yubian's sudden betrayal. Elder Chen was a little puzzled. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't figure out why he would attack him for no reason. "Sigh, I didn't manage to kill you. What a pity." Xiao Chen shrugged his shoulders helplessly after watching the show. "What? So it was you who did it?" Elder Chen was stunned. His expression was one of shock. Xiao Chen was clearly standing at the same spot and did not move. How could he instruct Jia Yubian to suddenly betray him? Could it be that they had already hooked up? Forget it. The turtle whip is useless anyway. It's your turn now. If you have any last words, say them quickly. Xiao Chen laughed coldly. He once again released his mental strength and prepared to control Elder Chen's consciousness. Elder Chen's quick reflexes were once again highlighted. He immediately waved his hand at the men in black behind him. He pointed at Xiao Chen and shouted, "All of you, attack. Kill this little brat for me." Elder Chen's voice stopped abruptly. Elder Chen's consciousness had already been controlled by Xiao Chen. However, it was too late. The men in black had already received Elder Chen's order. They all activated their mental strength and fiercely rushed towards Xiao Chen. Holy sh*T. Why can't I find the control token? Xiao Chen quickly searched Elder Chen's body and his heart instantly turned cold. Initially, he had wanted to find a token on Elder Chen that could allow him to control cyborgs. Then, he would give Elder Chen a taste of his own medicine. However, he had not expected to find anything. Seeing that the biohumans were about to reach him, Xiao Chen did not have time to think of other solutions. He could only withdraw his mental strength and summon his flying sword. Then, he stepped on the flying sword and flew into the sky. Xiao Chen had no other choice. If the other party only had 3 or 4 people, he could let the flames of the underworld kill 2 of them first, and then think of a way to deal with the rest. But now, there were 7 biohumans chasing after Xiao Chen. Even the person who had just been hit by Jia Yubian's palm was extremely active as he followed behind, wanting to kill Xiao Chen in one fell swoop. Since he could not think of a countermeasure for the time being, Xiao Chen could only dodge into the sky. After all, the space on the ground was too small. As long as the 7 of them casually set up a formation, they would be able to seal off all directions. When that time came, he would have no way to escape. Elder Chen only felt that his mind had gone blank for a moment. Then, his body shook and he regained consciousness. Although he did not know what had happened just now, when he raised his head and saw Xiao Chen riding the flying sword and dodging left and right in the sky, he felt very proud of himself. "Oh, Xiao Chen, I didn't know that you had such a treasure." Elder Chen stared fixedly at the flying sword under Xiao Chen's feet. A look of greed flashed in his eyes. Although he was already an elder of the Awakening Heaven sect, the flying sword was still a treasure in his imagination. Licking his lips, Elder Chen ordered the biohumans again, "All of you, knock this kid down. But be careful, don't hit the flying sword under his feet. This treasure is mine." After the biohumans received the order, they immediately activated 10% of their power and aimed at Xiao Chen, who was flying in the air, and slapped their palms heavily. Although they did not have their own consciousness, they cooperated quite well. These people did not attack at the same time. Instead, they were automatically divided into two groups. When the first group's palms missed, the second group would immediately fill in. On the one hand, Xiao Chen had to control the flying sword. On the other hand, he had to divert his attention to avoid the whistling strength. He could not help but complain in his heart, but he could not think of a solution. He could only stay in the air. For a moment, he was in a difficult situation and was surrounded by danger. "Master, be careful." Just as Xiao Chen dodged one of the strengths, the other two strengths came one after another. Seeing that Xiao Chen could no longer resist, Elder Chen, who was below, showed a look of excitement. At this time, Xiaoma suddenly drilled out of his body and rushed toward the strengths. Xiao Chen was slightly stunned and immediately took a few steps back. After seeing that Xiaoma had easily resolved the two palms, he immediately felt that the pressure was greatly reduced. He said happily, "Amazing, Xiaoma. You have also made a contribution." And Xiaoma did not stop. He continued to shuttle back and forth in the air, blocking all the strengths that were attacking Xiao Chen. While defending, he said to Xiao Chen, "Master, can you let me kill 2 biohumans first? Leave the rest to me." With Xiaoma's help to block the attacks, Xiao Chen suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. When he heard what Xiaoma said, he could not help but be overjoyed. He immediately asked, "Huh? Do you have a way? I have just studied it. There should not be too much of a problem." Although his words were cautious, Xiaoma's tone was very confident. "Very good." Xiao Chen was about to open his mouth to let the fire of the underworld in his body take action. Suddenly, he rolled his eyes and thought of something else. He quickly said, "Nethery, don't do anything for the time being. I still have some questions to ask that fool below. Wait for my orders." "Yes, Master." The fire of the underworld agreed. He secretly prepared himself and waited for the order to attack at any time. After everything was settled, Xiao Chen rode the flying sword and slowly landed on the ground. He looked at Elder Chen coldly. "I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it." Elder Chen saw that Xiao Chen had landed, so he waved his hand and asked the biohumans to stop attacking. He raised his head and squinted at the black shadow of Xiaoma in the sky. He sighed and said, "Not only do you have a treasure like a flying sword, but you also have such a magical helper. I am really starting to envy you, Xiao Chen. Comparisons are odious. You don't have this kind of ability. It is only right that you look up to me." Xiao Chen sneered coldly. Elder Chen did not seem to be offended by Xiao Chen's sarcasm. He asked with a smile, "In that case, why don't we make a deal? Give me the flying sword under your feet and tell me where you got that black fog from. Then I will spare your life." Of course, Elder Chen would not be so kind. Xiao Chen was a disaster. He had to be killed. Chapter 11:27. However, since he now had the upper hand, Elder Chen did not mind spending more time to figure out how to use the treasures in Xiao Chen's hands. After he had squeezed out all the remaining value from Xiao Chen, he would kill him directly. "Oh. Can you really spare my life and not kill me?" Xiao Chen seemed to be quite tempted and confirmed again. Of course, a man of his word cannot be taken back. "If I say I won't kill you, I definitely won't kill you. Elder Chen was secretly delighted. He thought to himself that young people were indeed impatient and fell into the trap so quickly. Xiao Chen pondered for a long time and seemed to have finally made a decision. He slapped the table and said, "All right. It just so happens that I have some questions to ask you." What questions? Elder Chen was overjoyed that he could obtain the treasures. When he heard the second half of Xiao Chen's sentence, he could not help but ask subconsciously. Xiao Chen smacked his lips and pointed at the black-clothed man. "I have to say, these biohumans are indeed quite powerful. However, I am a little puzzled. You don't seem to have a token to control them, but they can all listen to your orders. What is going on?" "Token? You actually know about the token?" Elder Chen was slightly stunned at first, but he quickly reacted. Perhaps Xiao Chen had seen another type of test subject before, so he knew about the existence of the token. Seeing that Xiao Chen nodded calmly and had a thirsty look on his face, Elder Chen did not put up too much of a guard against this guy who was about to die. He explained calmly, "These are all high-level biohumans. They can be controlled remotely. I can give them orders by sending signals from a distance, so they will listen to my orders." When he recalled that Jia Huiyan and Tang Tang were quite far apart, and without the token, Tang Tang would be restless and do all kinds of uncontrollable actions, Xiao Chen suddenly realized. After all, it was easy to be limited by the distance when using the token to control the biohumans. For example, when he sneaked into the Jia family this time, he left all the women at the periphery and deliberately left the token to Qing Menjing and the others beside Tang Tang. He was afraid that after he left with the token, Tang Tang would go crazy inexplicably because she was too far away from the token. However, out of caution, Xiao Chen still asked, "Isn't it just a token? How advanced could it be? Don't try to fool me. TSK, what do you know?" Elder Chen looked at Xiao Chen as if he was looking at a country bumpkin. He said with extreme disdain, "The token has an area of effect. The holder can only control it at a close distance, and there is a possibility that he or she will be in danger. Now that I don't have the token, I can continue to control them even if I am far away. Not only can you ensure your own safety, but you can also explore all kinds of secret passages." As he spoke, Elder Chen's expression suddenly changed. He realized that he had let the cat out of the bag. He immediately stopped talking and looked at Xiao Chen with a vigilant expression. Seeing his expression, Xiao Chen's mind turned quickly. This guy said that there was a secret passage. Could it be that they were going to use these biohumans to explore some dangerous places? So they had to control the actions of the biohumans when they were not present? While thinking quickly, Xiao Chen pretended that he did not understand. He asked with a puzzled expression, "The strength of the Open Heaven sect is so high. Why are you afraid of safety? Is there any secret passage in the inner martial arts world that you don't dare to enter? You don't need to know this." Elder Chen glanced at Xiao Chen and said impatiently, "All right, since your problem has been solved, then hand over the flying sword. And the black fog in the air, where did you get it from? Hurry up and tell me the truth." If it was not for the things in his hands, Elder Chen would not have bothered to talk nonsense with him. This brat was young, but he had a lot of treasures. "I can't remember this. You have to let me think about it first and recall it." Xiao Chen knew Elder Chen's little plan. Naturally, he would not hand over the flying sword and enxiaoma. So, he deliberately pretended to be polite and played the Tai Chi Dao. Elder Chen glared fiercely at Xiao Chen and shouted fiercely, "Hurry up. Don't think that you are safe with that thing taking the bullet for you. Believe it or not, I can still kill you in minutes." "Oh, I don't believe it." Xiao Chen laughed. He circulated his mental cultivation method and flew towards Elder Chen, sending a palm strike at him. "Brat, you are courting death." Elder Chen was fooled. He immediately retreated and shouted angrily. Xiao Chen was too lazy to pay attention to him. He directly ordered the flame of the underworld and enxiaoma, "Little Nethery, go and kill the 2 biohumans on the left. Enxiaoma, I will leave the other 5 to you." "Yes, master." The flame of the underworld immediately drilled out of Xiao Chen's body and divided into two groups to attack the biohuman on the left. And Xiaoma descended from the air and rushed toward the biohuman on the right. You! Damn! What is this? Elder Chen was about to command the biohumans to attack Xiao Chen when he suddenly saw two groups of bluish-purple flames coming out of nowhere and pouncing toward the two biohumans on the side. The black shadow in the air also swooped down and directly drilled into the head of one of the biohumans. He was shocked. You don't need to know. You just need to know that these things don't belong to you. Xiao Chen smiled slightly and continued to approach Elder Chen step by step. Elder Chen was a little flustered and involuntarily took a few steps back. He quickly waved to the other four biohumans and said, "You guys, quickly kill this brat." However, to Elder Chen's surprise, as soon as he finished speaking, the black shadow quickly ran out of the biohuman's head and quickly drilled into the heads of the other four biohumans. It was like a swimming fish, extremely fast. After the 5 biohumans were touched by the black shadow, they seemed to not hear Elder Chen's orders. Their bodies kept swaying, and it didn't take long for their arms to drop. They stopped moving forward and stood in place blankly, not moving at all. The other 2 biohumans had already been engulfed by the strange flame and were burned to ashes in a breath's time. Only 2 black clothes were left behind. They fluttered in the wind for a while before gently landing on the ground. The 2 black clothes formed a beautiful contrast with the other 2 black clothes not far away. How is this possible? Seeing this scene, Elder Chen was shocked. He finally understood how the 2 biohumans had died before. Panicking, Elder Chen ordered the other cyborgs to attack Xiao Chen again. However, unlike before, the cyborgs did not react at all. They remained rooted to the ground like idiots. Elder Chen was really dumbfounded this time. However, the current situation did not allow him to think too much. As there were no biohumans to stop him, Xiao Chen immediately slammed his palm after approaching. The palm wind was like a hot knife through butter, making a whooshing sound. Chapter 1128. In desperation, Elder Chen could only bite the bullet and wave his palm to meet the attack. Bang! The 2 of them collided with each other's palms. Elder Chen had obviously underestimated Xiao Chen's strength. In addition to the sudden change, he was caught off guard and could not resist with all his strength. He was directly blasted away. He opened his mouth in the air and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he fell heavily beside Jia Yubin's corpse. Xiao Chen only took a step back and stared at Elder Chen coldly. Even his expression did not change at all. Master, these 5 biohumans have been possessed by me. Now, they are no longer controlled by the open heavenly door. You can directly order them to do anything, but it is only temporary. And Xiaoma came out of the head of the last biohuman and came in front of Xiao Chen to report respectfully. As in Xiaoma was the same as the flame of the underworld, his level had also increased with Xiao Chen's breakthrough. Now, he could go back and forth to possess them. Therefore, he was able to control all the mindless biohumans in a short period of time. However, it was a pity that the brains of these biohumans had been destroyed. Therefore, Xiaoma could only leave a trace of his primordial spirit's mental strength in their brains so that they could be controlled for a short period of time. When the mental strength dissipated, it would no longer have any effect. Oh. Is this for real? Is it that fun? Xiao Chen's interest was piqued. He gave the cyborgs a few inexplicable commands in succession. Sure enough, they all obeyed his commands. Some were jumping around blindly, some were running around the courtyard, and some were twisting and dancing. For a moment, the courtyard was filled with demons dancing chaotically. It was a dazzling sight. Elder Chen was lying on the ground. When he saw this scene, his face could not help but turn pale. He could not figure out how the biohumans that his sect had painstakingly developed could be controlled by Xiao Chen in just a few breaths. What kind of monster was he? Xiao Chen controlled the biohumans to play around for a while before he remembered something. He asked in Xiaoma curiously with his divine sense. This thing is quite interesting. However, you said that I can only control it for a while? What will happen if my control over them fails? Will they be controlled by the open heavenly door again? I won't. And little demon was very proud of his masterpiece. I have completely cut off their connection with open heaven gate. Now their brains have been destroyed. It won't be long before my trace of spiritual power dissipates. They will become fools. Although they still have good strength, they can only stand there in a daze. Oh, I see. Well done. Xiao Chen praised him from the bottom of his heart. Then, he ordered the group of bio-humans to follow him and come before Elder Chen in a grandiose manner. Elder Chen looked at all the bio-humans who had been listening to his orders just now. Now, they were standing beside Xiao Chen and looking down at him. Cold sweat rolled down his back, and for a moment, his legs were so weak that he could not even get up. Xiao Chen looked down at him from above and said unhurriedly, Elder Chen, it's really been hard on you. You've sent me so many test subjects. I won't say anything unnecessary. Now, I want to ask you some questions. You better answer them honestly, otherwise. Xiao Chen did not finish his sentence. Instead, he raised his eyebrows and made an expression that said, you know what I mean, don't. Don't hit me. I had no choice. If it wasn't for the sect asking me to come, I wouldn't want to get involved in this mess. I don't have a good impression of Jia Yubian. I was just forced by the order. Elder Chen had no choice but to beg for mercy in a low voice. Looking at the bio-humans, who were originally controlled by the open heavenly door, all turned around and stared at him with pressure. Elder Chen felt quite upset. Stop talking nonsense. As far as I know, the open heavenly door has developed a potion that can control other people's thoughts. I believe you should be very clear about this matter, right? Xiao Chen looked at Elder Chen with narrowed eyes and asked coldly. I know. Elder Chen subconsciously glanced at the bio-humans and thought to himself, isn't that the species before these bio-humans? First, they were controlled by the potion, then commanded by the token. They were the first generation of bio-humans. Very good. Do you have the antidote for this potion? Do you have it with you? Hurry up and hand it over. Xiao Chen bent down and glared at Elder Chen as he asked fiercely. This. I know about the antidote. However, those potions are kept in the sect's laboratory and are strictly guarded. Without sect leader Situ's order, no one dares to use them on their own, let alone bring them with them. Elder Chen explained with a bitter face. Although he didn't know what Xiao Chen wanted the antidote for, he didn't dare to ask. He could only answer honestly, feeling uneasy in his heart. If that's the case, then aren't you worthless? Xiao Chen straightened his body and raised his eyebrows. He was prepared to command the bio-humans to kill Elder Chen. When Elder Chen heard what Xiao Chen said, he was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He thought to himself that his life was over. He didn't plan to put up any meaningless resistance, so he closed his eyes tightly and waited for the next attack. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, Elder Chen's heart was in his throat for a long time, but he didn't see the whooshing sound of the palm strike. He couldn't help but open his eyes in astonishment, only to see Xiao Chen looking at him with a complicated expression. It turned out that before he gave the order, Xiao Chen suddenly thought of Miss Xing. He remembered that this fellow had said that he was only following the sect's instructions. Wasn't that the same as Miss Xing? When he thought of this, Xiao Chen couldn't help but feel sympathetic. He was silent for a while, then simply waved his hand and said, "Hurry up and get lost before I change my mind. Don't let me see you again." After saying this, Xiao Chen didn't bother with Elder Chen anymore. Instead, he went to untie Jia Muzin, then brought him back to the room and closed the door with a bang. The control time of the bio-humans had also ended. At this moment, they were standing foolishly on the spot, no longer listening to Xiao Chen's instructions. Elder Chen stared blankly at the tightly shut door. Just now, he thought that this fellow was going to kill him. However, when he heard the latter part of the sentence, he was stunned. What was going on? Wasn't Xiao Chen too unfathomable? It was simply too strange. Although he was confused, Elder Chen still crawled up with a grunt. He didn't give up and tried to give orders to the bio-humans that were standing still. After trying a few times, he confirmed that they were really useless. He could only sigh helplessly and choose to give up. Seeing that the door to Jia Muzin's room was still tightly shut and silent, Elder Chen prepared to leave the Jia clan and return to Qi Tian's sect as soon as possible. When he walked to the side of Jia Yubian's corpse, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He muttered to himself for a moment, looked around, and saw that there was no one around. Then, he secretly carried Jia Yubian's corpse and brought it back with him. When Jia Muzin entered the room, he saw Jia Jinyan sitting on the sofa with his eyes closed. Although he didn't look too good, he was still in good spirits. Chapter 1129. Jia Muzin hurriedly walked over and asked about his well-being. "Grandpa, I'm back. I heard from Xiao Chen that he had just given you a massage. How are you feeling now?" "I'm fine. This time, thanks to little friend Xiao Chen's help, otherwise, the foundation established by the ancestors of the Jia family would have been destroyed." Jia Jinyan sighed and cast a grateful look at Xiao Chen, but he felt very upset in his heart. Jia Yubian was so blatantly colluding with Awakened sect. It was obvious that they had cooperated before. It was a pity that he didn't know anything and trusted him. He was really too muddle-headed. "No need to thank me. Jia Muzin is my friend. Since he asked me, I will definitely help him to the end," Xiao Chen said lightly. Jia Jinyan's injury had not yet healed, but he had heard the movement outside the room. He nodded and asked, "Has that disobedient son who betrayed the family been executed?" "Yes, Grandpa. Jia Yubian is dead." Among the helpers he invited, except for Elder Chen of Awakened sect, most of them were killed by Xiao Chen. Jia Muzin answered simply. He felt that his grandfather should understand Xiao Chen's means, so he didn't explain much. Jia Jinyan nodded slightly and didn't speak. Jia Yudo couldn't help but angrily criticize Xiao Chen. "It's not that I want to blame you, but how could you let that Elder Chen go so easily? This kind of person should be arrested and tortured. Then, call the people of Awakened sect to the Jia family and confront us face to face. Let's see how they will deny it." He had been standing by the window and peeping, so Jia Yudo clearly saw that Xiao Chen let Elder Chen go. He was very puzzled as to why Xiao Chen would do this. At this time, he couldn't help but ask. "You talk too much nonsense. Why weren't you so active when Jia Yubian brought people to injure Grandpa?" Jia Muzin angrily glared at Jia Yudo, then turned to Xiao Chen and said, "Xiao Chen, ignore him." Previously, he was threatened by Jia Yubian, and he was so scared that he forgot his surname. What a good-for-nothing. Jia Muzin's disgust towards Jia Yudo was not any less than Jia Yubian's. When Jia Yubian was rebelling and arresting people, this guy saw the people from Awakening Heaven sect and was immediately scared to the point that his legs went soft. He immediately flattered Jia Yubian, and his flattering appearance made Jia Jinyan unbearably angry. If Jia Yubian didn't bother to pay attention to him, Jia Yudo might have already stood on Jia Yubian's side and attacked the family. Therefore, Jia Yubian hated Jia Yubian very much and was not polite when he talked to him. "Oh, it's nothing. After listening to the trash talk, I should go out and clean up the trash. Eldest Miss and the others are still hiding in the jungle." "Jia," Xiao Chen said, "Yun and Jia, and said, Xiao and Jia, Xiao, I." Xiao Chen stretched his back and ignored Jia Yudo's furious gaze. He greeted Jia Jinyan and walked into the courtyard. Who are you calling trash?" Looking at Xiao Chen's swaggering back, Jia Yudo was about to go crazy. He didn't expect that he would be ridiculed by Xiao Chen for no reason just because he raised a reasonable question. But he couldn't do anything to him, so he could only glare and sulk. Jia Muzin promised Xiao Chen and was about to leave when Jia Yudo suddenly found a target to vent his anger on. He frowned and said, "Muzin, you're too outrageous. In any case, I am your elder. how can you use this kind of attitude to speak to me? Do you still have any concept of seniority? Alright, that's enough. Without waiting for Jia Muzin to refute, Jia Jinyan heavily slammed the table and stopped the two from arguing. Jia Muzin could only roll his eyes at Jia Yuto with a look of disapproval. Jia Yuto's old face turned red, but he couldn't speak and could only pant. Jia Jinyan didn't care too much and directly ordered, Muzin, take a few people and tidy up the courtyard and this room. After all, Xiao Chen is our Jia family's benefactor. We can't let him do this kind of rough work. Oh right, get someone to take out the best quality bird's nest and cook a sumptuous supper for Xiao Chen's friends to eat when they come back. Don't let them starve. Yes, Grandpa, I'll do it now. Jia Muzin immediately agreed. He gave a few instructions to the servants beside him and then led them out. Looking at Jia Yuto glaring at Jia Muzin's back with an exasperated expression, Jia Jinyan slightly shook his head. He only had 3 sons in his life. The eldest son colluded with outsiders in an attempt to rebel. The second son was a fence-sitter. The third son died for no reason. Alas, he didn't know what kind of sins he had committed in his previous life. If it wasn't for the fact that he had a grandson, Jia Muzin, who could be considered intelligent and had a wide network of friends, saving the Jia family from a crisis at a critical time, he would really be angered to death by these people. Yuto, bring some people here and tidy up the house. Throw away those things that are smashed or can't be used, and replace all the things that should be replaced. Otherwise, when the guests come later, they will laugh at us. Jia Jinyan sighed and ordered. Understood, father. Jia Yuto nodded. Although he was a little dissatisfied with Xiao Chen and Jia Muzin, he didn't dare to disobey his father's order. He could only busy himself with the arrangements. Jia Jinyan propped himself up and said to Jia Tuyao, who was beside him, Tuyao, help me back. When Xiao Chen and the others come back, they will still need to rest in this room. It's better not to disturb them. Okay, Grandpa, take care. Jia Tuyao responded as well, while holding Jia Jinyan's arm, they slowly walked towards the outside. His thoughts were the same as Jia Yuto's. Even if he was dissatisfied, he absolutely didn't dare to say it at this time. Wouldn't that be equivalent to asking for trouble? After Xiao Chen went out, he first led those silly biohumans to the dungeon and locked them up. He planned to use them for research in the future. After everything was done, he drove his flying sword to bring Qing Menjing and the others back. Just like that, Xiao Chen was busy until midnight. Only then did he bring Qing Menjing and the others back. Although the women didn't use their fists and legs, they had been worried about Xiao Chen's safety. Now that they knew that everything was safe and sound, they were finally relieved. Once they relaxed, they were a little tired. They casually ate a few mouthfuls of supper, lay on the bed, and fell asleep without even changing their clothes. However, Xiao Chen didn't dare to sleep directly. Instead, he released his divine sense to monitor the movements around the Jia family. Firstly, he was worried that after Elder Chen went back to report, the people of Awakening Heaven's sect would not be satisfied, and once again gather the biohumans to retaliate. Chapter 1130. Secondly, he was worried about Tang Tang, who was a ticking time bomb. Xiao Chen was afraid that after he fell asleep, she would lose control and do something strange again. So, he simply stayed by her side and cultivated to recover his primordial qi. As the dust settled on Xiao Chen's side, Xing was in a state of confusion. It had been 2 days since they returned to Qi Tian's sect. Xing had been in a state of indecision. She even regretted it a little. Why did she agree to Xiao Chen's request so easily? Was it because she really liked Xiao Chen? That's impossible. What's so good about Xiao Chen? He's always thinking of tricks to tease me. Although he's very strong and handsome, but, oh my god. What the hell am I thinking? I don't care about helping that stinky Xiao Chen. He actually asked me to get such a dangerous thing. If I don't go, what can you do? Xing mumbled to herself as if she was trying to cheer herself up. At this moment, she was sitting in a pavilion in the garden. Feeling depressed and annoyed, she angrily threw her new phone on the table. However, she quickly picked it up and looked at it carefully. When she found that it wasn't broken, she heaved a sigh of relief. After her previous phone was broken, little chick Xing hadn't bought a new one. She had just gotten this new Apple Rose Gold phone yesterday, and she had successfully bought it through a special channel. Therefore, she treasured it very much. Not only did she ask the seller to paste a gorgeous diamond on the phone, but she also specially chose a very cute phone case. Little Xing, who are you talking to? Elder son walked over and happened to hear Xing mumbling to herself. He couldn't help but look at her in confusion. No, I'm not talking. Xing was startled. She quickly stood up and replied in a slightly flustered manner. Elder son looked at her doubtfully. Then, he looked at the diamond pasted on the phone and the cute cartoon case. He frowned slightly and said, "You got the new phone? Then hurry up and get ready. Tomorrow, we will go to the Jia family again and continue to monitor Xiao Chen's movements." He still wanted to go to the Jia clan? What excuse should I use to get close to Xiao Chen this time? He's a little suspicious and often hides in his room mysteriously. I have no way of approaching him. Little Miss Xing was startled and said with a bitter face. She had thought that she didn't have to work undercover around Xiao Chen anymore. She didn't expect that the task would come immediately. Helpless, she could only casually make up a lie in an attempt to make elder son retract his order. Think of a way yourself. Why don't you just tell him that you found a way to remove the poison in her body, and then lead him to a dangerous place, and then you can observe him in secret, said elder son impatiently. But, if he is really in danger, does he still need me to protect him? If I keep coming and going like this, he will definitely be suspicious of me. Maybe he won't even go. Miss Xing lowered her head and stammered. She thought to herself, Xiao Chen's current strength is so powerful that I don't have the ability to protect him even if I wanted to. Elder son also had a headache. He shook his head and said, "There's no other way. Elder Chen's sneak attack on the Jia family has failed. It's that Xiao Chen's doing again. This fellow is really too troublesome. However, the sect leader doesn't allow me to kill him directly. Now that the Jia family's line of communication has been cut off, we have to think of another way." What? How could this be? Little Miss Xing suddenly raised her head and exclaimed, "Didn't Elder Chen bring many experts with him? How could they fail? That Xiao Chen is actually so powerful. What if I fail to frame him and get myself killed instead? Wouldn't I suffer a great loss?" Lady Xing did not know the inside story of this sneak attack. She also did not know that the people she had brought along were all cyborgs. She only heard that the people following Elder Chen were all venerable experts. Previously, she had been secretly worried for Xiao Chen and Tian Suruan. Therefore, when she heard this news, she could not help but be shocked. What do you mean by a loss? Do you still think that this is a business transaction? Elder son looked at little Miss Xing with a strange expression and said in a cold tone, "Little Xing, I realize that ever since you followed Xiao Chen, you seem to have become more and more strange. Not only did you not follow the orders of your superiors, you also became more and more impudent when speaking to me. Do you still remember your status?" I'm sorry, elder son." Little Miss Xing felt the coldness in elder son's voice and instantly trembled in fear. She hurriedly apologized. In fact, even she didn't realize that her originally cold and emotionless personality was slowly changing as she continued to interact with Xiao Chen. The stiff puppet that only knew how to listen to orders had gradually become an ordinary girl that was filled with all kinds of emotions. "Forget it, I won't punish you this time. Quickly go back to your room and pack up. We will leave tomorrow morning." Elder son coldly snorted and glanced at little Miss Xing thoughtfully. After coldly instructing her, he flicked his sleeves and left. After waiting for elder son to leave, little Miss Xing let out a sigh of relief. She took her new phone and walked back to her room. Her mind was filled with random thoughts. After seeing Xiao Chen, how should I report to him? If he knew that I didn't manage to steal the information, would he kill me in a fit of anger? But even if I really steal the information, the risk is too great. If I'm discovered, it's very likely that I'll be detained. At that time, will I become like Tang Tang? Will I also be forcefully injected with the experimental drug? Will I become a puppet that has no consciousness other than killing people? What's the difference between me and a dead person? Ah. It seems that no matter what, I'm going to die this time. What should I do? What should I do? That night, a black shadow quietly snuck into the Chi Tian Sex Research Institute. The figure easily avoided all kinds of surveillance equipment and guards. Very smoothly, he arrived at a room. He took out his phone and deftly turned on the flashlight function. Although the light of the flashlight wasn't very strong, it was still able to illuminate the surroundings of the room. At the same time, it also illuminated the face of the person in black. Impressively, it was little Miss Xing. For the entire afternoon and night, little Miss Xing struggled in her room for a long time. After repeatedly weighing the pros and cons, she finally made up her mind to help Xiao Chen steal the information. In any case, the risk of stealing the information was relatively small. Moreover, during her afternoon thinking, she suddenly thought of a good way. This way could ensure that even if she was discovered and caught, she wouldn't be punished too heavily. But if she didn't steal the information and directly went to find Xiao Chen, it would mean that she was going back on her previous promise to him. Chapter 1131. Xing had always felt that Xiao Chen's temper was hard to understand. If he found out, who knew what he would do? Furthermore, she couldn't bear to watch him every time. Furthermore, this was something she had personally promised him. If she didn't do it, she would feel as if she owed him a huge favor. After all, Xiao Chen had saved her life more than once. Xing remembered it in her heart. She had always wanted to find an opportunity to repay him. Since Xiao Chen needed her help, she couldn't let him down, right? After thinking for a long time, Xing finally decided to wait until the dead of night. Then, she would steal some information from the laboratory and bring it to Xiao Chen. After rummaging around for a while, Xing finally found information related to the experimental drug. When she saw the words, "Control Reagent," on the cover, she suppressed the excitement in her heart and flipped through a few pages. After confirming the contents, she returned the laboratory to its original state. Then, she took the information and phone and prepared to leave the laboratory. "Little Xing, what are you doing in the laboratory?" Xing had just stepped out of the room and was about to carefully close the door when Elder Sun's cold voice suddenly came from behind her. Xing was so scared that she trembled. She almost threw her phone and the information on the ground. "I'm asking you a question. What are you doing in the laboratory? What is that thing in your hand?" Elder Sun opened his mouth again and asked word by word. Little Miss Xing made a prompt decision. She stiffly turned around and stared blankly at Elder Sun and his subordinates. Then, without saying a word, she mechanically walked past them. From the looks of it, she was a mindless cyborg. "You. Stop her. Don't let her get away." Elder Sun stared blankly at Xing as she walked past. He was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He hurriedly shouted and chased after her with his subordinates. Xing's figure was rigid, but her strides were large. In a short while, she had already walked quite a distance. She turned a deaf ear to Elder Sun's shouts. Elder Sun didn't expect Xing to be so arrogant. After he finally caught up with her, he blocked her way and angrily shouted, "Little Xing. Don't you know that trespassing into the laboratory is a capital offense? And you actually dared to steal the research materials from the laboratory. What are you trying to do?" It turned out that when Elder Sun gave the order to Xing Bingyao in the afternoon, he felt that her actions were a little strange. So, after he left, he sent someone to secretly monitor her every move. In the middle of the night, Elder Sun had just fallen asleep when his subordinates ran over to report that little Miss Xing had snuck into the laboratory and was currently stealing information. Elder Sun finally confirmed his suspicions and hurriedly brought his men over. Little girl Xing remained silent as if she didn't see elder son and his group. Her eyes were blank as she continued to walk forward. Her hand tightly held onto the research document. In fact, this little girl's heart was about to jump out of her throat. When she was thinking about the plan of action at night, she had a flash of inspiration and just happened to think of this trick, pretending to be controlled. If he wasn't discovered when he was stealing the data, then everything would be fine. If he was discovered, then he would act like a robot and deliberately pretend that his mind was controlled by someone, and that was why he was stealing the research data. This trick was also inspired by Tang Tang. She had carefully observed Tang Tang's movements and behavior, and she had learned it very well. Although she didn't know if she could get away with it, she couldn't think of a better way at the moment. So, this was the only thing she could do. Humph. You're still pretending to be dumb? Elder son didn't think too much about it. He thought that Xing Bingyao was just pretending. Suddenly, he felt that his dignity had been seriously challenged. His lungs were about to explode. He immediately signaled his men behind him, "Everyone, go. Capture her and lock her in a cell. I want to see how long she can pretend for." "Yes, sir." Several venerable masters immediately nodded. They rushed forward and quickly restrained Xing Bingyao. At the same time, they took away the phone and the research document from her hand. Xing Bingyao first symbolically struggled a few times, but she still couldn't resist the strength of the venerable masters. Only when her hands and feet were tied with rope did she quietly stand still. However, she still had a blank expression on her face. Even when her things were taken away, she didn't show any signs of anxiousness. After angrily bringing Xing Bingyao to the interrogation room, elder son used both carrot and stick on her. He tempted, threatened, and intimidated her. He used all the tricks he could think of. However, Xing Bingyao still didn't say a word. She still had that confused look on her face. She stared blankly at elder son's face, as if there was a flower on his face. After asking for more than an hour, elder son still got nothing. In the end, he was so angry that he rolled up his sleeves and prepared to torture Xing Bingyao personally. It was called torture, but in fact, it was just using a whip dipped in salt water to whip Xing Bingyao a few times. However, elder son didn't dare to be too harsh, and he didn't dare to use his demonic energy. If he accidentally killed Xing Bingyao, then he wouldn't be able to get anything out of her. It would also be a waste of a cultivator talent. If it was an ordinary person being whipped by this kind of whip dipped in salt water, they might have already died from the pain. However, for a cultivator, especially a demon king great perfection powerhouse like Xing Bingyao, she might not be crushed to death even if she was placed under the wheels of a car, let alone being whipped. What's more, elder son didn't even dare to use his demonic energy. The pain on this superficial wound was just a piece of cake for Xing Bingyao. She wouldn't even move her eyes, let alone confess. For this point, elder son was naturally very clear in his heart, but apart from this method, he couldn't think of other torture methods. He could only treat it as a way to vent his anger. He whipped her a few more times, then he sat on the chair and sulked. After staring at Xing Bingyao fiercely for a while, elder son lowered his head and his eyes fell on the fancy and cute mobile phone and a pile of research materials on the table. Elder son suddenly stared at the mobile phone and thought for a while. This kind of experimental potion has only been used by a few people. Among these people, only Tang Tang has contact with Xiao Qin. Could it be that Xing Gongzi was instructed by Xiao Qin to steal this information? Thinking of this, elder son suddenly had an idea. He picked up Xing Bingyao's mobile phone and planned to check if there were any phone calls or text messages between her and Xiao Qin. Chapter 1132. However, elder son didn't expect that little Miss Xing's phone was locked with a fingerprint and password. He tried a few sets of passwords, but they were all wrong. He could only place the phone on little Miss Xing's finger and unlock the screen. He was too lazy to walk back, so he stood in front of little Miss Xing and started flipping through the communication records. Little Miss Xing looked down and saw elder son looking down at his phone. She couldn't help but rejoice in her heart. Luckily, she didn't contact Xiao Chen after buying the new phone. There was no trace of him in the phone. Elder son was going to be disappointed. As expected, after flipping through the phone for a long time, elder son's frown deepened. Why wasn't there any record in the phone? If it was really Xiao Chen's instructions, wasn't the secrecy done too well? After staring at the phone and thinking for a long time, elder son's eyes suddenly lit up. He directly opened the text message function and started typing. He planned to use little Miss Xing's tone to send a message to Xiao Chen for help. Firstly, he could confirm his thoughts. Secondly, if it was really Xiao Chen who wanted the information, then he could trick him into Qi Tian's sect. Who knows, he might even be able to lure those people out. This way, wouldn't he be killing two birds with one stone? He was really too smart. After typing the message, elder son looked through it again. After confirming that there were no problems, he found Xiao Chen's number and sent it over. Then, he decisively switched off the phone and sat back in his chair. He crossed his legs and smiled sinisterly as he imagined the scene of his plan succeeding and Xiao Chen walking into his trap. Seeing elder son's despicable smile, little Miss Xing could faintly guess what he was using her phone for. Her originally relaxed mood became a little nervous again. There was a strange feeling of anticipation and worry in her heart. She hoped that Xiao Chen would come and save her, but she also didn't want Xiao Chen to take this risk. For a moment, thousands of thoughts ran through her mind and her mood became complicated. Even she didn't know why she was like this. In the backyard of the Jia residence, in an abandoned room, Xiao Chen was preparing to start his research on those biohumans. Suddenly, the phone in his pocket vibrated. Xiao Chen didn't think too much about it. He subconsciously took out his phone and glanced at it. He couldn't help but blurt out, "What the F***ck, isn't this ladyboy too unreliable?" It's such a simple thing to steal data, but she was caught doing it. Wasn't she pretty good at it when she first came to the research institute to steal data? Looking at the message on his phone, Xiao Chen couldn't help but feel angry and amused at the same time. He originally thought that little Lady Xing was familiar with her own sect and that she was quite proficient in this skill, so she should be able to successfully steal the information. He didn't expect that she would be dragged into this. Even though he said that, Xiao Chen still immediately dialed Xing's number. It wasn't until the cold tone of the phone being turned off that Xiao Chen realized that something was wrong. Cheng Menjing and the other girls were very bored staying in the courtyard, so they were all by Xiao Chen's side to help him. When they heard what he said, they all stretched their heads and glanced at his phone. There was only a short line of words on it. Xiao Chen, stealing data failed. I've been exposed. Hubby Xiao Chen, are you going to open Heavenly Gate to rescue Xing Xing? Seeing this, Tian Souring asked with concern. She pouted and added, Sister Souring feels that she's quite pitiful. Open Heavenly Gate is a broken place. There's no human touch at all. It seems that she's only happier when she's with us. Tian Souring's words came from the bottom of her heart. After spending some time together, she had quite a good impression of Xing Xing. She felt that this girl didn't pretend and was very refreshing. She also communicated very harmoniously with her, so naturally, she didn't want Xing Xing to suffer. Yes. Xiao Chen, why don't you go? No matter what, young Master Xing was caught because he wanted to save Tang Tang. We can't just watch him die. Cheng Menjing nodded in agreement. In fact, from the bottom of her heart, Cheng Menjing didn't want Xiao Chen to go to open Heavenly Gate. After all, that was the enemy's base camp. It was too dangerous to break in. However, if Xiao Chen really didn't go to save people, it would be somewhat morally unjustifiable. Therefore, her heart was also quite tangled. At this time, hearing Tian Souring's words, she finally made up her mind. Well, I'll get ready and go right away. You can tell Jia Muzhen later. But remember not to tell him the truth. Just say that I have something urgent to do and need to go out immediately, so that he won't be anxious and think too much. Xiao Chen put away his phone and warned. The women nodded in understanding. They all knew Jia Muzin's character. If he knew that Xiao Chen was going to open Heavenly Gate to save people, he would definitely not agree. After all, the risk factor was too high. However, although Ling and Ling Qianxue didn't object, they both proposed that they wanted to go with Xiao Chen to save people. Although the strength of the two women wasn't high, they didn't want to let Xiao Chen take risks alone. This kind of anxious feeling was too uncomfortable. Xiao Chen could only comfort them with kind words and appease their emotions. Although Open Heavenly Gate wasn't a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, there were too many unknown dangers. If he brought Ling and Ling Qianxue, it would be troublesome if he couldn't take care of them when the time came. Taking out the token to control Tang Tang, Xiao Chen was a little hesitant. He was considering whether to bring Tang Tang with him. If this trip went smoothly, he might be able to get the antidote for Tang Tang while rescuing Xing Tang. If he gave her the antidote directly, the control potion would naturally be cured. Leave the token to us for safekeeping. It's more convenient for you to move alone. Qing Menjing saw Xiao Chen's doubts. She reached out and gently took the token. She explained, otherwise, if you bring Tang Tang with you, they might have other measures to capture her again. Then you'll be at a loss. Although Qing Menjing used to have some hostility towards Tang Tang, it had long disappeared with time. At this time, she was also considering Tang Tang's safety. All right, then I'll leave Tang Tang in your care. Xiao Chen felt that what the eldest miss said was reasonable, so he smiled and agreed. He tidied up a little, opened the door and walked out. The girls naturally wouldn't stay in the room. They rushed out and stood behind Xiao Chen, as if they could cheer him on. Xiao Chen took out his flying sword and waved to Qing Menjing and the other girls. He smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely come back safely, and I can also bring Xing Tang back. Don't worry too much about me. Just wait for me to come back." After that, Xiao Chen jumped on the flying sword and instantly left the Jia family, flying in the direction of Qi Tian Gate. Watching the flying sword break through the air, Xiao Chen's figure gradually became a small black dot. Qing Menjing and the other girls looked at each other and could see the deep worry in each other's eyes. However, they had no other way. The only thing they could do was to take Tang Tang back to the courtyard and pray silently, hoping that Xiao Chen could return smoothly. Chapter 1133. In the Dungeon of Awakening Gate. Although Miss Xing hadn't eaten for 2 days and hadn't closed her eyes, she still looked energetic and radiant. Other than her lips being a little dry and peeling due to lack of water, there was no other discomfort. After all, Miss Xing had the support of the Demon King Great Perfection Cultivation. Even if she didn't eat or drink for a week, she could live well. Previously, Elder Sun had tried to interrogate her a few more times, but little Chick Xing still had a blank expression on her face. She pretended to be crazy and refused to speak no matter what. Elder Sun couldn't be bothered to stay with this blockhead any longer, so he directly returned to the sect and didn't bother with her anymore. After all, as the Elder of Awakening Gate, he still had a lot of things to do. Anyway, he had already sent a text message to Xiao Chen. He would see the results in these few days, so there was no need to continue to stay in the dungeon and accompany the silly Miss Xing in a daze. Although little girl Xing's body was safe and sound, she had stayed in the dark and gloomy prison for 2 days without anyone to accompany her. She still had to maintain her vigilance at all times and was prepared to play dumb. Her mental state was already beyond exhausted. Once she relaxed, a lot of negative thoughts would emerge in Miss Xing's mind. She felt that it was impossible for Xiao Chen to take the risk to come for her. After all, this is the base camp of Awakening Gate. Who has such courage to break into the enemy camp? If Xiao Chen doesn't come, then I will either die in the dungeon, or I will be taken by Elder Sun to experiment on some kind of biohuman, or, hey, Mr. Lady Boy, are you thirsty? Do you want to drink some of the best mineral water I made? On this day, Miss Xing was lowering her head and letting her imagination run wild. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice. That voice was so familiar that Miss Xing jumped in fright. She abruptly raised her head in disbelief and was instantly dumbfounded. It was indeed Xiao Chen. She saw Xiao Chen sitting leisurely on the table with his right index finger raised. There was a spinning water ball on top of it. He was looking at her with a smile. Hey, why don't you talk? Is it because he's not thirsty? Xiao Chen shook his head and turned to look at the water ball in his hand. He muttered to himself, "Tsk tisk, that's a pity. I can't even drink such sweet water. I'll drink it myself. We have to save water. Don't waste it." After he finished speaking, Xiao Chen moved his face closer to the side of the water ball spell and gently sucked the water in the water ball with his mouth. His throat even made gulp-gulp sounds as he swallowed. Little girl Xing involuntarily swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She had not drunk any water for 2 whole days. If she did not eat, she could rely on her cultivation to get by. However, not having water to drink was something that even cultivators could not bear. At this moment, when she saw the crystal-clear water ball in Xiao Chen's hands, she naturally wanted to drink it to her heart's content. However, she also suspected that the Xiao Chen she saw was an illusion. Or could it be a trap set by Elder Sun? Since she didn't know the enemy's situation, she could only choose to pretend to be unmoved. Alright, stop pretending. Drink some water. Once you're done, I'll take you and escape. Xiao Chen had no choice but to raise the water ball spell to her mouth when he saw how pitiful Xing Er was, but she still pretended not to care. However, the originally fist-sized water ball had shrunk to the size of a ping-pong ball after Xiao Chen drank a few mouthfuls. Xiao Chen, it's really you? When little girl Xing's lips came into contact with the water ball, she instantly felt a cooling sensation. She couldn't care about pretending to be confused anymore. She hurriedly opened her mouth and swallowed the entire water ball. Then, she gulped down the water in large mouthfuls. However, before she could drink a few mouthfuls, the water ball was completely exhausted. Little girl Xing was still unsatisfied and unconsciously used her tongue to lick her teeth. In the end, the tip of her tongue touched a strange thing. This. I say, Prince Ladyboy, your tastes are very unique. It seems that not only have you not drunk water for a long time, you haven't even eaten food. That's a little too miserable. Xiao Chen jumped in fright and hurriedly pulled his finger out. He didn't expect little girl Xing to be so fierce. She actually put his finger in her mouth and subconsciously licked it a few times. This action was a little too ambiguous. Pay. Who wants to eat your finger? You're simply too unhygienic. That's right, have you trimmed your nails? What if there are germs? Will you infect me? Little girl Xing finally realized what she had licked and jumped in fright. She hurriedly spat a few times and angrily retorted. Thinking back to her previous expression of enjoyment, little girl Xing's face instantly turned red. Originally, she thought that the Xiao Chen in front of her was someone else in disguise. However, when she touched the unmistakably real water ball technique and heard Xiao Chen's infuriating words, she immediately confirmed that this was definitely Xiao Chen. After all, only Xiao Chen would make such an unimaginable water ball technique. Only he would have such a venomous tongue. He was clearly here to save her, yet he could make her so angry that she was grinding her teeth. You still have the nerve to talk about me? Xiao Chen curled his lips and mercilessly exposed her. Who was the one who didn't get tired of it and even blindly licked with his tongue? To think that I was so worried about your safety and rushed over at top speed. I even accidentally got a few speeding tickets. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come to save you. You don't know how to appreciate my kindness. Although he was complaining, Xiao Chen's hands did not hesitate as he quickly removed the shackles on little girl Xing's hands and feet. Then, he very naturally stretched out his hand to take her pulse. After confirming that her body was fine, he finally relaxed. Fast your head. Do you think you're still in the secular world? Wake up, okay? Little girl Xing rolled her eyes in annoyance. However, she was still a little touched by Xiao Chen's thoughtfulness in taking her pulse after saving her. In order to hide this emotion, she changed the topic and asked, That's right, How did you know that I was locked up here? Also, how did you get in? When we were outside the open heaven gate, didn't you say that there was a place with lax security? I came in from there. As for how I knew where you were, you don't have to worry about that. Xiao Chen shrugged his shoulders and gave a simple explanation. Oh. Okay. Little girl Xing nodded. Her shackles were released and she began to move her wrists. Then, she bent down to massage her ankles, unintentionally revealing a large patch of snow-white skin on her back. Previously, when Xiao Chen was helping little girl Xing remove her shackles, he had noticed that the clothes on her back seemed to be torn. At that time, he was a little puzzled. Now that little girl Xing bent down, Xiao Chen's gaze naturally landed on her back. Chapter 1134. He saw that on Miss Xing's snow-white back, there were many ghastly scars. Her flesh was twisted and blood-stained. It was obvious that she had been whipped recently, causing her perfect back to become a complete mess. Xiao Chen's expression changed when he saw this scene. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes. His tone immediately turned cold as he asked, Xing Gongzi, what happened to your back? Who whipped you? What injury? Xing Gongzi was stunned. She straightened her body and touched her back. Only then did she know what Xiao Chen was talking about. She waved her hand carelessly and said, Oh, didn't I help you steal research materials a few days ago? In the end, I was caught by Elder Sunday. Fortunately, I was smart enough to pretend that my mind was being controlled by someone and became like Tang Tang. That's how I was spared. Spared? Xiao Chen's brows furrowed tightly. He looked at Xing Gongzi pulling up the clothes on her back and asked with dissatisfaction, There are so many wounds on your back. How can you be considered spared? Who did this to him? Xing Gongzi smiled and explained, these injuries were caused by Elder Sunday. But it's not a big deal. It's not like I hurt my muscles or bones. It's fine. When I was cultivating in the past, the injuries I suffered were much more serious than this. Hee, Elder Sun, right? Xiao Chen's tone was gloomy. I've long wanted to meet him. He even dared to be so heavy-handed with my people. His position as an elder has come to an end. Xiao Chen didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled. But that smile revealed a cold murderous intent. Xing Gongzi couldn't help but shiver. Seeing Xiao Chen like this, Xing Gongzi didn't feel at ease. Instead, she frowned and was a little worried. After all, there were many masters in Qi Tian Gate. She was afraid that Xiao Chen would impulsively go find Elder Sunday. Now that they were finally freed, it would be really hard to escape if they were caught again. Therefore, Xing Gongzi didn't mind Xiao Chen saying that she was his person. Instead, she pulled him and hurriedly said, Forget it, Xiao Chen. This little bit of pain is nothing to me. Think about my cultivation, this little bit of skin wound can't hurt me at all. Let's leave Qi Tian Gate first. Who knows when Elder Sun and the others will come back? It's fine. I'll send you to a safe place first before coming back to teach Elder Sun a lesson. Xiao Chen's tone softened. He casually took off his jacket and draped it over Xing's body. Then, he helped her out of the dungeon. Xing Gongzi knew that Xiao Chen was helping her cover the wound on her back and her torn clothes. She couldn't help but feel a burst of warmth in her heart. She tightened the jacket on her body and wanted to say a few more words to persuade Xiao Chen. Unexpectedly, just as she walked out of the dungeon, she saw Elder Sun and a middle-aged man walking shoulder to shoulder in the direction of the dungeon. There were even a few venerable experts following behind them. They were the people who had captured her earlier. Xing Gongzi was shocked and immediately returned to her original state. She started to act dumb and stared blankly into the distance. At this time, Elder Sun also saw the movement in front of the dungeon. He saw Xiao Chen supporting Xing Gongzi and preparing to sneakily escape. He was stunned for a moment before shouting, Damn! Xiao Xing, you traitorous disciple! You really have something going on with Xiao Chen. I've finally caught you red-handed. You have nothing to say, right? Why aren't you going to surrender? Xing Gongzi turned a deaf ear to him and continued to walk in the direction of the escape with a blank look. Elder Sun was furious and immediately ordered his subordinates behind him. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and attack. Capture both of them. The few honorable experts exchanged glances and immediately used their movement techniques to rush over. They surrounded Xiao Chen and Xing Gongzi in the middle. Then, they circulated their mental cultivation techniques and were ready to attack at any time. Seeing Xing Gongzi suddenly turn into a blank look, Xiao Chen immediately understood the reason. His face darkened and he angrily said, "Looks like you are Elder Sun. What a coincidence, I was just about to look for you. Since you're here, there's no need for you to leave." Humph. You overestimate yourself. I should be the one saying that to you. Elder Sun walked over and coldly snorted, "Do you think that after killing a few useless biohumans, you have enough strength to fight against the open heavenly gate? Today, I'll make sure that you won't be able to leave alive." After saying that, Elder Sun did not wait for Xiao Chen to make his move. He turned around and ordered his subordinates, "Xiao Chen is full of tricks. Don't show any mercy. All of you, attack. Don't give him any chance to attack." "Yes, sir." Since Elder Sun had spoken, the honorable experts naturally would not show any mercy. In an instant, they raised the demonic qi in their bodies to the maximum. Then, they waved their palms and slapped towards Xiao Chen. The air was suddenly filled with a suffocating and thick killing intent. TSK, I realize that you people are even more stupid than the biohumans. Do you really think that I'm a weakling that you can kill as you please? As Xiao Chen mocked them, he immediately circulated his mental cultivation techniques. He took out his flying sword and infused it with his divine sense and mental strength. He waved his sword and shouted loudly, "So what if you're honorable experts? All of you can go to hell. Unsheath." The middle-aged man who came with Elder Sun had not spoken before. He just watched from the side. When Xiao Chen was surrounded, he only raised his eyebrows and did not look proud. Because he knew that since this kid dared to come alone, he must have come prepared. It was just that he did not know what Xiao Chen's ultimate move was. When Xiao Chen mocked Elder Sun, the middle-aged man's ominous premonition became stronger. When he saw the flying sword break through the air, he finally felt that the situation was not good. He could not help but shout, "Danger! Be careful! Get out of the way!" Whoosh! Although the middle-aged man's shout was considered timely, the honorable expert's reaction speed was still a step too slow. The flying sword in the air split into two, then two into four. In a flash, it transformed into the same number of honorable experts. Those flying swords stopped in the air for a short while. All of them drew a strange arc in the air and went straight for the heads of the surrounding honorable experts. Those honorable experts did not understand what was going on. They saw a strong light flash in front of them, and then a large hole was pierced through their heads. They were even sent flying by a strong force. They did not even have the chance to scream. When they landed on the ground, they were all dead. WH. What? This is... Elder Sun's mouth was wide open in horror. He looked at the lifeless honorable experts on the ground in disbelief. His back was drenched in cold sweat, and his heart felt incomparably cold. Chapter 1135. Although Elder Sun had heard about the flying sword from Elder Chen before, he only thought that it was a tool for Xiao Chen to fly. He never expected Xiao Chen's flying sword to be so powerful. Not only could he fly on a sword, but he could also use it to kill so many venerable realm masters. This was too heaven-defying. Xiao Chen raised his sword finger and twirled it in the air. He gathered all the flying swords back together and merged them into one flying sword. He put it back in his hand and turned around to look at Elder Sun's expression. He sneered coldly, "What's the point of opening your mouth so wide? Do you want to experience the feeling of a flying sword piercing through your throat?" Elder Sun's entire body trembled, and he immediately closed his mouth. Because he closed his mouth too quickly, the sound of bones cracking could be heard, and he almost dislocated. Xiao Chen didn't look at him. Instead, he lowered his head and admired his flying sword. He said calmly, "What do you think? My new ultimate technique is powerful, right? Do you want to find some venerable realm masters to test it out on me?" Actually, Xiao Chen's divide and strike technique was inspired by the fire of the underworld. In addition, he had seen some cartoons in the past. Then, he came up with it on his way to the open heavenly gate. After coming up with this technique, he tested it repeatedly before he finally succeeded. Now that he was using it, it was indeed powerful and effective. However, this ultimate technique had its own weakness. Basically, every time it was used, it would consume a large amount of yuan qi and mental strength. Usually, after using it, it would require a period of time to recover. Xiao Chen originally planned to use this technique to deal with the biohumans. However, the situation was critical now, so he could only use it on normal cultivators. At least, it could save them in an emergency. Otherwise, if Xiao Chen really had to face so many venerable realm masters alone, he might not have 100% chance of winning. Moreover, he had to split his attention to take care of Lady Xing, who was pretending to be dumb. Apart from Elder Sun and the other cultivators, the middle-aged man who warned them just now didn't look simple either. Weighing the pros and cons, Xiao Chen could only choose to unleash his ultimate move first. On the one hand, he could reduce the enemy's combat power, and on the other hand, he could intimidate Elder Sun and the middle-aged man. After that, he could think of a way to escape. This sect. Sect leader Situ, do you think we should send those biohumans over to block them? Elder Sun was so frightened that he took a few steps back. He stuttered and asked for instructions. Xiao Chen is too powerful. If this goes on, I'm afraid all the venerable experts in our sect will. Elder Sun was smart enough to not finish his discouraging words. In fact, he was also shocked by the move just now, and felt that he could not resist it. He was afraid that if Xiao Chen was unhappy, he would use his flying sword to stab him to death. Lunatic. Why don't you go block the flying swords yourself? Hearing how Elder Sun addressed him, the middle-aged man was obviously Open Heaven sect leader Situ Qitian. He glared at Elder Sun and took a few steps forward vigilantly. He looked at Xiao Chen and said in a low voice, "Xiao Chen, I didn't expect you to have some ability. However, this doesn't mean that our Open Heaven sect is afraid of you. How about this, let's each take a step back this time. We'll fight openly again another day. What do you think?" Situ Qitian was not like Elder Sun, who was afraid of Xiao Chen's flying sword. It was just that he had heard from Elder Chen that Xiao Chen had other strange moves that he had not used until now. Therefore, Situ Qitian did not plan to act rashly. He wanted to figure out Xiao Chen's trump card first before making a long-term plan. "Oh, no problem. Since sect leader Situ has spoken, I have to give you face no matter what, right? Then we'll meet again." Xiao Chen nodded nonchalantly. Then, he held the flying sword in one hand and held Xing's arm in the other as he walked out. However, they had only taken a few steps when they were stopped by Situ Qitian again. Xiao Chen frowned and looked coldly at Situ Qitian. He said indifferently, "Sect leader Situ, what do you mean by this? Are you going to swallow your words back into your stomach? As a dignified sect leader, how can you be so immoral? Don't you think you're not magnanimous enough?" "Huh, Xiao Chen, don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant." Situ Qitian smiled faintly. He pointed at Xing Chick and said, "I just said that you can leave, but little Xing is a member of our Awakening Heaven sect. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for you to take her away so openly, right?" "Oh. What's not appropriate? Why don't I feel that way?" Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and looked at Situ Qitian provocatively. Situ Qitian saw that Xiao Chen's attitude was so unyielding, and his face stiffened. He said stiffly, "If you really take her away and word gets out, Situ Qitian won't have the face to mingle in the inner martial arts circle." So, I hope that you can keep her and hand her over to Open Heaven's sect to deal with. Hand her over to you for what? Is this what you mean by taking a step back? Xiao Chen sneered. Then I'm sorry, I don't accept your conditions. Today, I must take Xingongzi away. If you think that you have the ability to keep us here, then you can try. Xiao Chen naturally knew that things were not so simple. He simply shed all pretense of cordiality and raised his flying sword, pointing it at Situ Qitian. Then, he slowly injected his mental strength into the sword. Ha ha ha. Good. Very good. Situ Qitian threw his head back and laughed a few times. Without another word, he circulated his mental cultivation and displayed the strength of a perfected supremacy. He stared at Xiao Chen and said coldly, "Then all of you. Damn it, you actually cheated." Situ Qitian was prepared to say something to boost his morale before attacking Xiao Chen. But halfway through his words, he suddenly saw Xiao Chen's fingers loosen, and a white beam of light shot straight at him. What a joke. It's not like I'm listening to a teacher's lecture. Do I have to wait for you to finish before attacking? Do you think I'm stupid? Xiao Chen snorted coldly, his tone filled with mockery. In fact, Xiao Chen had no choice but to attack. After all, he had used that move just now, and he did not have much primordial energy left in his body. Although he did not know if he could kill Situ Qitian in one strike, Xiao Chen still wanted to give it a try. Otherwise, the longer it dragged on, the greater the danger. Furthermore, he had to leave some mental strength to control the flying sword, so he did not use his full strength. Against Xiao Chen's attack, Situ Qitian could only give up on attacking helplessly. Instead, he gathered all his fiendish qi in his hand and stared unblinkingly at the rapidly approaching white light, silently estimating the flying sword's speed. Just as the flying sword was about to stab into Situ Qitian's body, he suddenly clasped his palms together. With a beautiful empty-handed blade grab, he caught the flying sword between his palms. Chapter 1136. However, it was unknown whether it was due to inertia, or Situ Qitian had wrongly estimated Xiao Chen's strength, but the flying sword that had been blocked continued to charge forward. It only stopped when the tip of the sword pierced Situ Qitian's forehead. The skin between Situ Qitian's brow was also pierced, and a drop of blood instantly flowed down his nose, looking a little scary. "Oh, your reaction is quite fast. You're much stronger than those defeated soldiers under you. No wonder you can become the sect leader of Awakening Sect." Xiao Chen curled his lips. He looked calm and collected on the surface, but he secretly lamented that it was a pity. He had thought that he could kill Situ Qitian with his flying sword, but he did not expect that Situ Qitian would be able to catch it. This old fellow really had some ability. Situ Qitian threw away the flying sword in his hand and wiped the blood on his forehead. His expression was very ugly. Since he had broken through to become a venerable expert, this was the first time he had been injured, and it was a sneak attack. It was simply too embarrassing. Fortunately, there was only Elder Sun beside him. Otherwise, if disciples from other sects saw this, he would lose a lot of face. "Xiao Chen, don't be too proud of yourself." Seeing Situ Qitian's gloomy face after being injured, Elder Sun hurriedly stood up and retorted loudly, "Why don't you say that even your most powerful move was easily resolved by our sect leader Situ? I'd like to see what kind of ability you have next, enough to let you leave Awakening Sect." As he spoke, Elder Sun lowered his head, and his eyes suddenly fell on the flying sword on the ground. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he pounced forward, reaching out to snatch the flying sword. Just as Elder Sun's fingertips were about to touch the flying sword, he heard a swoosh sound, and the flying sword rose from the ground and flashed past his eyes. Elder Sun watched the flying sword return to Xiao Chen's hand, but he himself had fallen flat on his face. Xiao Chen easily used his mental strength to control the flying sword and took it back into his hand. Then he looked at Elder Sun, who had angrily climbed up and dusted himself off, and said, "Surnamed Sun, you've lived so many years, but have you been living like a dog? Aren't you a little too naive? How could I only have this move? Didn't your elder Chen tell you that I still have many strange tricks up my sleeves? Elder Sun and Situ Qitian were stunned. They looked at each other, and Elder Chen's horrified description appeared in their minds at the same time. Elder Chen said that not only could Xiao Chen control biohumans, but he could also control a kind of black shadow. Not only could it help him absorb damage, but it could also release bluish-purple flames that could instantly burn biohumans to ashes. As for Xiao Chen, he had not even used these moves yet. The two of them immediately felt a little guilty and did not know what to say to retaliate. When Xiao Chen saw Situ Qitian and Elder Sun's expressions suddenly turn a little grave, he immediately guessed that Elder Chen must have exaggerated when he reported. Otherwise, these two fools wouldn't have been so easily intimidated by his one sentence. Don't think I don't know that she's an outstanding disciple of your sect. Controlling such a person is the most fulfilling thing. Xiao Chen immediately guessed that Elder Chen must have exaggerated when he reported. Don't think I don't know that she's an outstanding disciple of your sect. Controlling such a person gives me the greatest sense of accomplishment. Humph, Xiao Chen, don't try to trick me. I won't believe you. You're just a rogue cultivator from the secular world. How could you control someone's mind without the help of any drugs? Do you really think we're 3-year-old children? Elder Sun snorted. Although he said that, he knew that Elder Chen was not lying. After all, this guy had brought 7 or 8 biohumans out, and none of them returned. It was absolutely impossible to say that Xiao Chen did not have some trump cards. However, Xiao Chen said that he could control people's minds. This was complete nonsense. How could he do this without the use of drugs? Even the Awakening Gate itself had been researched for several years and experienced countless failures before it was able to produce those barely qualified experimental potions. Situ Qitian, on the other hand, did not say a word as he looked at Xiao Chen in front of him in silence. He sighed in his heart. Back then, that good-for-nothing who could not cultivate, an ant who was mercilessly suppressed in the secular world, actually had the qualifications to come to the inner martial arts world. He had even walked into the Awakening Heaven sect's headquarters and stood in front of him. As for his painstaking efforts, would they bear fruit? The person behind Xiao Chen, when will you come out? I, Situ Qitian, don't have that much time to play with you. Oh, since you don't believe me, then I'll let you see. Xiao Chen ignored Situ Qitian's changing expression and shrugged. He directly released his divine sense to Elder Sunday, don't joke around. Smack. Elder Sun was just about to laugh at him when he suddenly raised his left hand and slapped himself hard. Situ Qitian's thoughts were immediately interrupted as he looked at this scene dumbfounded. What? What was going on? Elder Sun was controlled just like that? But Xiao Chen did not even touch him. Xiao Chen leisurely retracted his divine sense and stared at Elder Sun with a cold smile. How is it? Impossible? Try saying that again. This. Elder Sun was completely dumbfounded. He subconsciously reached out and touched his face, only to feel a burning pain on his face. When he was being controlled just now, he could not do anything and could only watch his own hand hit his face heavily. He did not even have the slightest consciousness to resist. What happened? Why am I here? Little Miss Xing had seen the whole process just now and was not confused at this time. She immediately woke up when Xiao Chen was controlling Elder Sunday. She looked left and right in a daze and said in a daze, Sect Leader Situ, Elder Sun, why are you here? Xiao Chen. What are you doing here? After saying that, little Miss Xing immediately took a few steps back and slightly distanced herself from Xiao Chen. She had a vigilant look on her face. It had to be said that little Miss Xing had been training and completing missions all year round. Her acting skills had already reached perfection. Even Situ Qitian and Elder Sun were fooled by her vivid performance. Xiao Chen also looked at her in a daze. For a moment, the few of them did not know what to say. Cough, cough. In the end, it was Situ Qitian who reacted first. He rolled his eyes and immediately came up with a plan. He cleared his throat and attracted everyone's attention. He first looked deeply at little Miss Xing, then turned his head and said to Xiao Chen with a solemn face, "Xiao Chen, don't think that just because you know some crooked tricks, I won't dare to do anything to you. If not for the fact that the venerable mystic realm is about to open and I don't want any more losses, I would have already kept you here." You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.